here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Well, following up that great conversation with Jake Kosak of the Bronx Zoo, hope to see him opening weekend at Yankee Stadium, by the way, is another great in the media world, Lou Terminello, for his Terminello's Take. Lou, we're getting some big hits on this podcast, and I got to remind people that sometimes I post this on two different channels. So I got to remember to always post on the sports outlet because that's where people find you. But yes, we are on the One Leg Up feature as well. We're getting the brand out there, Louis. Terminello's Take.
Alex, that's great. Thanks for having me on this, let's see, this rainy Wednesday. What a rainy week this has been.
I mean, Steve Cohen's, I know it's been raining, but I thought they could play a little bit. He's not just trying to stall losing again, is he? I hate to bust your chops there with that, but.
Absolutely not. First of all, last night, that game should have been canceled at about 5 o'clock instead of at 9:20 last night. They did the smart thing today, and they canceled it at just after 1 o'clock. It's ridiculous having 4,000 or 5,000 fans freeze their butts off and get wet for
and
a
a very
game
displeased Gary Cohen.
Fun.
They caught him off camera. I don't know if you saw that, but they caught him as he was leaving the airways, and he rolled his eyes. It was just Gary Cohen became a meme, and we love the guy, but I thought that was fascinating that he was a meme overnight.
I did not see that. But
he just had this face of like, why am I still here type of thing.
Yeah, so. And I get it. I mean, I get it, So, I mean, that game should have been called way before. And I don't know nowadays with the way it used to be. During the season, the home team controlled if the game was played or not. When you played your teams in your division 3 times, they would come in, except the last time they'd come in, the umpires controlled if the game it was going to be postponed. Now, with all these dumb interleague games, and they are absolutely dumb, with Detroit coming in for just 3 games, the only 3 times the Mets will play Detroit this year, I don't know if it's in the umpires' hands or in the home team's hands. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's just been.
They've got to get it in tomorrow. We know that because that's the last time Detroit comes in to the Mets. Anyway, they'll obviously come to see the Yankees, but then that won't make any sense. So they got to get it done tomorrow with a, I think, single admission doubleheader. So we'll have to see. We'll get back to their very slow start in a minute. But I got to tell you, Lou, my Final Four bracket is busted, and I'll tell you, thank God it's UConn because they're the ones I picked to win it all. But I mean, Tennessee and Marquette were in my bracket. Maybe someone would say, why you pick those guys? Look, Purdue is defying odds because they normally get knocked out around before the Final Four.
Well, Alex, I mean, the fact that you picked Tennessee and Marquette, even though they didn't win, those were 2 fine picks. I was so disappointed in Marquette the night they got eliminated. They were never in the game against NC State. And NC State had control of the game the entire way. And Marquette has a very good team. And again, in this 1-game scenario, if if you're off just a little bit, the season's over. And Tennessee, obviously, Dalton Connect had 37 points against Purdue. The rest of his supporting cast came up very, very small, and they were in it all the way. But Zach Edey had a spectacular game, and he is redeeming himself for being a missing in action person last year against Fairleigh Dickinson University, and the year before that against St. Peter's University. So they're trying to make amends for those last 2 years, and I think they will. I think they will get to the championship game and play UConn. Now, again, I'm not a predictor, but this is just in the natural. Those 2 teams should be playing for the championship. Anything can happen in 1 game. Villanova in '85 beat Georgetown. It was like David against Goliath, but David won. NC State in 1983 against Houston. Nobody gave NC State a chance. They beat the University of Houston and won the championship. We can go down through the years with situations like that. But for NC State, think about this, Alex. They 5 games in 5 days in the ACC tournament. They had to win the ACC tournament to get in. They were on the 11 line, so they were probably the last team in, even with the even though they got the automatic bid, they were probably the last seed that got in from one of the power conferences. They beat Duke twice in 2 weeks. They're on their head coach, Kevin Keats, 75% certain he was going to get fired. Now he has his team in the Final Four, and he has a chance to win the national championship. It is a remarkable story, and just goes to show you, if you get into the tournament, if you get into the playoffs, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, or hockey, look at the Diamondbacks last year, 84 wins, and they got into the World Series. The Texas Rangers won the World Series. They were the 5th seed. The Diamondbacks were the 6th seed. So with these teams battling against the 8th spot or 7th spot in these leagues, once you get in, really anything can happen. But I think NC State is going to run into a different animal on Saturday night. I do. I mean, this DJ Burns has been a revelation. He's a big, beefy kid, got great footwork. He's an excellent passer. But going against Edey could be a whole different story. And again, Edey, Burns, whoever stays out of foul trouble is going to that's going to be a difference maker. But I like Purdue. I like Purdue in that game. But NC State has good size, so they can match up with the Purdue big guy. But we'll see. They've just
all right. Well, I want to say this. I want to put on record with you, Louis. My bracket did beat Charles Barkley, so I did beat Sir Charles after all. So I got to say that, and I'm pretty proud of that. I mean, I guess I want to pick the winner now, but to beat a analyst on TV and a legend as Charles Barkley is pretty cool. I got to say, he had 52 points. I had 65 to end last
you
week.
Thrashed him. You routed him, Alex. That's great.
So, obviously I want to see Connecticut win it all. And I picked them just because their momentum and the way they looked in the Big East tournament. By the way, these tournaments now, I think, need a little more respect on them, especially if a team like NC State wins that first round. I think everybody's like, okay, so it's the first round. But when they beat Virginia, then you knew something was happening. Okay, when they beat Virginia the way they did, I think that was a telltale sign they were on the move.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, they need like a couple of miracle shots to advance in that game, and then to beat Duke and North Carolina back to back, and that was 5 games in 5 days is a remarkable achievement. And hats off to the Wolfpack. I mean, this game against Purdue on Saturday night. I mean, I just can't see them really hanging in there. But again, anything can happen. The other thing is the 3-point shot. If you have your 3-point game going that night, that makes a lot of difference. The Purdue backcourt of Brandon Smith and Fletcher Hoyer, they're veteran, they're good. They've taken hits, as we said, last year against FDU, the year before against St. Peter's. So they are driven not to let that happen again. But we'll see. I like Purdue in the game. I do. I like Purdue in the game.
Well, and I want to now go to the other side of the bracket, but real fast. The fact that with all the complaining, and I know it was one letter about how certain teams didn't make the tournament from the Big East, but Val Ackerman might actually get the biggest reward, which is another Big East championship this time through UConn. I mean, would a win like that sort of vindicate all the disappointment, if you will, that only 3 teams made it from a conference perspective?
I would say so. And I think they knew that going in to Selection Sunday before the teams were selected that UConn was had a good chance of winning the championship. And again, they haven't won anything yet. They got to win 2 more games. And again, it's a 1-game situation. If this was 2 out of 3, 3 out of 5, UConn is definitely winning. They are, and we've talked about it, they're the best coach team. Bobby Hurley is the best coach in college basketball by a good margin. They have a great balanced team. They can play any way their opponents want to play. They can play a half-court game. They can play an up-tempo game. They can play a physical game, and they have a great chance to become the first team to win back-to-back NCAA men's basketball titles since the 2006-2007 champion Florida Gators.
Lou, I gotta say this on that bracket. Alabama and Clemson. No, that wasn't an SEC title game for football. That was actually Alabama basketball versus Clemson, and I think we all realized, at least I did, Joe Girard is on the Clemson team now, which was sort of a shocker because the transfer portal, it's so fast. These guys will just end up wherever, and boom, Girard's there in Clemson. What an addition for them.
Well, he was a great addition, and you talk about the transfer portal, and this is something that Fran Fraschilla was talking about last night on the Seton Hall game against Georgia in the NIT semifinals about how the NCAA has to get control of the transfer portal. There's over 1,800 players in the transfer portal right now since it opened up 2 weeks ago. That's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, we've talked about the transfer portal. We've talked about NIL. They got to get control over the situation. They really do. So we'll see what happens. But look at UConn. Look what they did to Illinois, to a real good Illinois team the other day. It was 23-23. I said, "Oh, they're in trouble. They're in a little bit of trouble." Then they go on a breaching the end of the first half and the second half, going on that 30-0 run in an Elite 8 game. What destruction! I mean, in a national regional semifinal between 2 highly seeded teams, you talk about putting the hammer down. They really did. Klingon is getting better and better, especially defensively, which makes UConn even more difficult to defeat, in my opinion. Tristan Newton, 6'5" defensive dynamo, and his offensive game is improving. The freshman of the year, Stephen Castle, 6'3", is probably going to be declared for the NBA draft. Another good defensive guard. Alec Caravan, a very productive, strong forward. I mean, they're a good team. I think this, and I know I'm in the minority on this one. I know some people said that last year UConn's team was better. I'm not so sure. I think this might be the best UConn team ever. Combination of offense, defense, and the chemistry that they have on the court. And as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the chemistry that they have with their coach. There's no disconnection between the players on the court during the game and their coach on the sideline. And
Danny Hurley makes it known, that he has his guys back, but also that he wants them to. He pushes them even when they're up by 30. He pushes them to get to that 3-point line and whatnot. He's not letting them slack. That's for sure.
No. You can't slack with Danny. You can't slack with Danny Hurley. You can't.
He's such a basketball name. Did you ever get to meet any of the Hurley boys? Because that is the Hurley name is such an institution when it comes to tri-state area basketball. I think anyway.
The only Hurley I met was Bobby Hurley Sr. Because when I was with the Nets, we did high school games before Nets games, and we had St. Anthony's in for a Tournament of Champions event, and they played before a couple of Nets games. But that was my only interaction. very easy to talk to. Spoke to him on the phone as we tried to do some things. He's what you see. I mean, he was the real deal. And he's a high school basketball coach who's a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame. Think about that. Never coached in college. Never was an NBA assistant or an NBA head coach. Never was a college assistant. Just an outstanding Hall of Fame high school basketball coach. And his son is picking right up. I mean, Danny Hurley is, yes, he gets revved up. He's a tremendous coach.
And it's almost like you can't bet against him. But I gotta say, it seems like Purdue is just on this mission to show the world, hey, we're going to upend everybody. I think that momentum is going to be very interesting if they happen to clash in the title game, which all intents and purposes, if you look at it on paper, it should be Purdue UConn. But
right.
That's why they play the game.
That's why they play the game. Alabama makes 11 3-pointers a game. They're going to play Connecticut on Saturday. It looks like, in the natural, there's no way Alabama could stay with Connecticut. But if they hit 11 3-pointers, they're 11 3-pointers a game, or 12 or 8 or 9, that could be the difference. That's their only hope, in my opinion, against UConn. They have to make their threes to have a chance. Their defense is better in a tournament than it was in the regular season. I mean, in the regular season, they were number 2 in offensive efficiency. But defensive efficiency, they're around 125, 130. Can't do that against UConn. You can't play that kind of defense against UConn. The size, the guard size with Tristan Newton and Castle, I think might bother the Alabama guard size, even though Mark Sears is a terrific player. He's 6'2", and Estrada, the kid from St. Peter's, then Hofstra, then Alabama. Talk about the transfer portal. He's another 6'1" guard, but Alabama lives and dies by the 3-point shot. So we'll see what happens. But again, that's why they play the game, especially in the NCAA tournament. Anything can happen in one game. History has shown that.
Oh yeah. Now, Lou, I want to, because you're a financial guy, also you look at the finances. I never really knew this. Maybe the fan base does or doesn't. Do these teams win any actual money for advancing on to each round, or is there?
Yes, they do. They do. For each round they advance, the conference gets more money, and it's split up among the conference members. So that is definitely a factor with these teams winning, and that's why Val Ackerman wants UConn men's and UConn's women to keep going, and they're both in the Final Four, as is North Carolina State's women. So
that's happened since 2004 or something, where where the men and women's teams have been in the same Final Four, in the same year. That is just something I want to get to that, because I was really pulling for LSU women last year. I thought they had a great run, but it's not even about the Washington Post article, Lou. It's their reaction to it. It's their chip on their shoulder, all about me mentality following that article. I mean, Kim Mulcahy, she was very beloved last year. Now she's just kind of become hated and whatnot. And that's pretty sad, because she did lead a great team to victory last year. It's all fallen apart for them this year. I just didn't like the way they reacted to the article. Did you?
Well, Kim Mulkey was a great point guard in her day, and I don't think it's bad to have a chip on your shoulder. If people are writing stuff about you that you don't feel is accurate and could damage the character of you or your team, she has every right to complain. I am not a huge follower of women's college basketball, just because there's only so many things you can follow. But Caitlin Clark's performance the other night was historic in a lot of ways. That game on ESPN drew 12.3 million, highest in the history of the women's game. It peaked at 16.9. And Caitlin Clark, besides being the best player in college basketball, and she's going to be the #1 draft pick in the WNBA, and I guess it's the Indiana Fever that won the lottery, and apparently they've already sold out season tickets for the upcoming year. She is transforming the WNBA, which was seemed to be on the rise a little bit last year and the year before anyway, but she's going to take it to another level. She is transforming all of women's sports, whether it's the new Premier Women's Hockey League, whether it's the National Women's Soccer League, which was on the upswing. She will rocket that because of her ability and her notoriety as a women's basketball player. She's humble. I don't think the LSU teams seem to be so very humble. Again, I don't know the ins and outs of the LSU situation, why they think everybody's after them. But that's
they were not focused heading into that game. I know that much. They looked sloppy. They had turnover. I mean, although Angel Reese had some incredible turnover and steals too, but the point is they just were more about showing, oh, we're going to dominate. We're going to do this. Instead of just playing the game, I felt like they were more about trying to show themselves off rather than playing the game.
Well, I think that's a product of what happened after the championship game last year, with Angel Reese really bringing attention to herself. And I'm not downgrading her in any way. She's a fantastic player, but with that incident towards the end of the game, again, it's no big deal. It's sports. That's what happens in sports. You talk trash. Trash talking has been going on for 150 years. In baseball was the original trash talking, bench jockeying sport. So to me, it's no big deal to me. You do anything you can within the rules to win the game, to advance. And if you put in your mind that everybody's against us, if that's going to help you win, I hope all the teams I root for adopt that philosophy. But Caitlin Clark is not good, not great. She's spectacular in every way.
All right, well, then that leads me to this thing. She won't say it, but she might have a chip on her shoulder knowing that she's going to face a guy that apparently wouldn't even bother looking at her in high school. Now, Gino Auriemma is a legend. He's had those undefeated teams, and they had that incredible streak. But is this a rare miss in Gino Auriemma's career that everybody's going to talk about now?
Again, I need more research. I did hear that story that he didn't recruit her. He didn't go to see her, which is almost hard to believe. But you got to hear it from Gino to why what happened there. Now, I didn't know this. I didn't realize until last night that Caitlin Clark was originally going to go to Notre Dame and then changed her mind and went to Iowa. So that was something I did not know. But yeah, I was surprised that you think Gino Auriemma would have been all over the recruitment of Caitlin Clark, and he wasn't for whatever reason. Now, again, here's a Hall of Fame coach who has recruited so many Hall of Fame players to the UConn women's basketball program. I don't think you could knock it, but I just don't know really why he didn't go after her. Was it scholarship issue where he didn't have any more scholarships? Was it a roster issue? Who knows?
She also really wanted to go to UConn. Apparently she had a picture above her bed in a UConn jersey, that whole thing.
Sure.
But and of course, when you're a kid growing up and you see women's college basketball being dominated by UConn, I guess that's the natural feel to want to join all that, But real fast before we put a button on the college basketball scene, LSU had an incredible year. They had the women's team, and they had baseball, and Skeens what was the first pick of the MLB draft. I mean, LSU sports has been on the rise. I think maybe a little bit before Burrow, but Joe Burrow set a standard there, didn't he?
Well, Burrow obviously kind of brought him back, but if you go through the history of LSU sports, whether it's football and back to the Pete Maravich days, LSU is an icon, is an iconic brand, and has an iconic SEC history, and also which spreads to national prominence. And it's not ending anytime soon. That's for sure. And I guess Paul Skeens will be in the major leagues this year. Sometime this year he'll be brought up by.
And by the way, that team is like 5-0 to start the year. We might as well go into baseball now, because obviously Yanks are no longer undefeated. I mean, we're in a time where the Tigers and Pirates, two legendary franchises, are on the up and up. And you know what? As someone who's a baseball historian or loves the history of baseball, seeing the Pirates and Tigers do pretty good for baseball, isn't it?
Well, 100%. You're 100% correct. To see these teams play well. Now, remember, the Pirates, it was either last year or the year before, were about 10 games over 500, at the end of May or early June, and totally fell apart and couldn't win a game basically for the last 4 months of the season. So again, overreaction in the first week of baseball, both positive and negative, is just something that fans, media people just can't get out of your head. Sure, you want to win a game. You don't want to be 0-7 like the Miami Marlins or 0-4 like the Mets. When it happens in the middle of the season, you lose 7 in a row. Say if you're like 31-24 and then you lose 7 in a row, it's different than when you start out 0-7 or 0-4. But you gotta put the foot on the brake and see what happens. As you know, I was not optimistic about the Mets team coming into the season, but I'm certainly not going to overreact on the fact that they're 0-4. The fact that they scored 8 runs in 4 games, that's an issue. But the Yankees are 5-0. Well, excuse me. The Yankees are 5-1, and 5 of their main guys are batting under 180. So they're 5-1. Look what they have to look forward to. So, I mean, does that mean the Yankees are going to 105 games, 106 games? I don't know. But, Rizzo under 180, Judge under 180, Gleyber Torres under 180. A couple of other guys who I saw, they were under 180. You got Soto, who's the real deal. He's at, 417? And Volpe is at 500. Yep. But again, we know Volpe.
And Judge just hit his first homer as we were talking, Louis. He just hit his first homer in Arizona as we're talking. So
how about that?
Aaron Judge, yes, sir. First homer. And you know what's funny about that is Twitter, and I don't even know why I go into these rabbit holes on Twitter. It's kind of nonsensical. But some guys were like, we should trade him. We should bench him.
Again, these people just, it's just like these gas bag shows on ESPN and Fox Sports 1. Alex, I just won't watch them. They're mindless. I'm not going to name the shows. You know what they are. You know who the hosts are. The same old crap. I saw it today. Are the Texans now a threat to the Chiefs? The trade was made for Stephon Diggs 3 hours ago. We're already trying. We don't know what these teams are going to look like on the field. It's all overreaction. These guys, and most of these guys don't know football from a hockey puck.
No, it's true. Although I will tell you, they played a clip of Boomer, and I know he sounded pretty knowledgeable about Volpe. I'm like, here's a football guy that knows his baseball too, which was I love when a player can play one sport but be diverse in knowing the other sports. You have to be a host.
Well, like you were talking about Boomer Esiason?
Yeah, Boomer Esiason.
Yeah, Boomer Esiason works at his craft. I mean, not all of these guys are gas bags,
right?
But most of them are, and I'm not going to. Boomer's fine. Boomer understands the business of sport. He understands. Obviously, he knows the game of hockey. He plays hockey. He was an NFL MVP, so obviously he knows the NFL. No, he knows sports. There's no doubt about it. But some of these guys don't.
Oh, Lou, I want to say the one thing which might sound outlandish to you and other Met fans. It just doesn't feel coincidental. You remove Carlos Mendoza from that Yankee locker room and into the Mets, and it's almost like he's a difference one way or the other in the sense of okay, it's his first year managing, gets suspended the first weekend of baseball. But I'm wondering, he was there for a few years. The Yanks weren't as successful with him as the bench. I mean, bench coach. I mean, there's got to
Well,
be
but did they
a
get to
rhyme
the
to that reason.
ALCS 2 years ago?
Yeah, they did. That's true. But it just seems like with the shakeup in the coaching roster for the Yankees, that's made a difference. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong, but I just feel like
it's too early. It's way too early. It's way too early to make any judgment on anybody. I know nothing about Carlos Mendoza, nothing. And like I said, I don't know why the Mets has taken the strategy to take a step back in 2024. I don't think you can do that in New York. I just don't think you can. And Steve Cohen thinks you can do that. Come June, when the Mets are under 500, and the Yankees might be ahead of the Orioles, and 20 games over 500, and the people on ESPN and WFAN are going to be critical of him. Let's see how he likes it then. I mean, the fact that they did nothing to boost the pitching staff except getting a bunch of 3 and 4 numbers, 3 and 4 type starters, signing, I know it's only 1 year, but giving a stiff like Luis Severino $13 million is a joke. The guy, Adrian Hauser, I have no idea what to expect from him. I don't understand it. I agree. We're in an era right now where you don't want to give pitchers ridiculous term of 7 or 8 years because, and 30, 32, 33, $28 million a year because they're pitching 5 in the third innings. I get that. But I don't understand the Mets strategy right now. And I hope David Stearns knows what the heck he's doing. But right now, we'll see. I have never been, and I told you this before the season began, I have never been less enthusiastic for the beginning of the baseball season. And I love all sports, but if you told me to pick one, I probably would pick baseball. I love hockey. I love them all. And I was in the NBA for 28 years. So, I love all sports. But this baseball season has been, going into this baseball season, no enthusiasm, no buzz, Alex, no buzz. No buzz, not only for the Mets, no buzz for baseball, no buzz. That's on baseball's marketing team. That's on Manfred. They can't get it right. Opening day should be a huge event like it was when I was young. Yes, I know other sports have come up and have now challenged baseball, but still, opening day should be special. It was still special 15 years ago. Doesn't seem special right now. We start the season with 2 regular season games 10 days before the real opening day. In the old days, the Cincinnati Reds would start on the Monday of opening week. And most of the times they were a standalone game. There'd be a parade in Cincinnati because they were the first team in the National League. They're the only remaining team from the charter teams when the National League started in 1876, 11 years after the Civil War. Think about that, Alex. And baseball, the sport built on tradition, has totally blown up tradition. These dumb interleague games, the free runner at second base. I mean, no creative ingenuity to make the sport more attractive in competition with the other sports. I'm very disappointed the way Major League Baseball is marketed right now, or not marketed.
I know, and they thought going to Seoul, Korea was going to be the answer, and of course you couldn't really watch them. Now, the other storyline going into all of this was whether Ohtani was going to do this, that, and the other, and it was as you say though. I feel like those stories are only attracting a certain base. It's not like a nationwide thing. I mean, the steroid thing was a big deal in '98. But I'm just saying, all these things with baseball seem to be very limited to you and I and every other baseball fan. That's pretty much it.
Right. I mean, if that was another sport, that would be front and center. This Ohtani thing with his agent and Alex, all right, he might have a lot of money, but boy, I know if if somebody took $4.5 million out of my bank account, I think I would know it. I mean, really? I don't care how much money you're worth. So there's something there. I don't know if baseball's going to sweep it under the rug. I'm not saying Ohtani bet on baseball or anything like that. It just seems like something, I don't know, something's missing there. So we'll see. We'll keep a close eye on it as baseball fans. But
Well, I was gonna say, how would you, if you were in the commissioner's office right now and talking to him face to face, how would you market it? I think they're trying with the younger kids to be on their social media platforms, but I don't know. It seems to be hit or miss. The content from MLB itself is kind of wild now. It's very weird compared to what it used to be. And by the way, they don't even do like the top. Remember, Mel Allen used to do that Saturday show every week. Where is
show.
that?
This week in baseball. That was a fantastic show. That was a great marketing tool for baseball. And this is if I was in a room with Manfred. We just talked about Ohtani. Again, I know we've talked about this before. He's the number one face in baseball right now. But really, how many people really know him? The casual fan. That's what makes the other sports different right now. The 12.3 that watch on cable, Caitlin Clark the other night. That's what baseball doesn't do. They made that an event. The Ohtani signing, we've said it 100 times. It shouldn't have been announced on a Saturday afternoon at 4:00 in December. That should have been an event. Hey, Ohtani's people should have, Manfred's people should have said, when you're ready to sign, let us know, and we will have a huge press conference. We will make it an event. They didn't. They don't do that. Here they got Aaron Judge. I mean, everybody likes home runs. And again, yeah, he's okay. Yeah, his jersey might be the number one selling jersey in the sport, but it's different than LeBron James or the late Kobe Bryant or Patrick Mahomes. It's just different the way these sports do it. Having, and again, Major League Baseball, just like the other sports, but especially, football can get away with it. But we'll put football, we won't even talk about football. Major League Baseball selling out to these cable companies just for a couple more dollars. Really, again, I might be getting old, let's put it that way. And the days when the NL and AL Championship Series were on NBC or ABC, and the World Series was on ABC or NBC. Now it's some games of the Championship Series alternates each year from the American League to the National League. A couple of games on Fox, the rest of them on Fox Sports 1 because they're trying to build up Fox Sports 1. The NL on TBS. Really, what does TBS do for you? TBS does nothing. There is nothing on TBS. Nothing but reruns of Friends. Who cares? I mean, there's got to be a little cachet, a little prestige. There's no prestige with TBS. There's no prestige with Fox Sports 1. None. What, for a couple of million extra dollars? Are you kidding me?
All right, Lou. Well, I'll give you one highlight, which opening day weekend, I went on Saturday, and that was the first time Diaz came back since his devastating injury. It was first time in about a year and change, and that was cool. But the bunting outside Citi Field, I mean, I had done a compare and contrast of Ebbets Field. It just felt like an old-timey kind of thing. And I love that bunting wherever I could find it on an opening day. It's just part of the sport, Mm-hmm. So there was a little bright spot that at least the ballparks are keeping tradition alive. I just wish, and the other thing is, we got to say, because there's not been a winner here, 15 years for the Yankees, but really since the 90s with the Yankees, it's been less interest. And the fact that the Mets, give everybody hope and then they tank. I mean, something's got to change. I just think it's the struggles of the New York teams that are making it a little more desolate feeling. I don't know. That's my thought overall.
Well, I think locally it does, but nationally it doesn't. Look what the Yankees drew in Arizona these last couple of games. I'm sure it's another big crowd today in Phoenix. So the Yankees are still a national brand, and the Yankees have two of the top three or four top five players in baseball in Soto and Judge. And this summer, if they both are cooking at the same time, it's going to be not. I don't want to say must see TV, but it's going to pique a lot of interest locally. I don't know if it's going to be done nationally, but definitely locally.
I know. We'll have to see how it goes. By the way, the Yanks went to Mexico, and not really another thing that not many people knew about, unless you watch social media. No one really knew those games were happening. So yeah, the marketing could be better. I know the London series kind of drives you nuts because you want everything on the home field, here in the U.S. But hey, I think
But
a
the
lot
thing
of
is,
veterans go over there.
Alex, there's no problem in growing the game. And they're doing the London series for the third straight year. They're doing it in the middle of the season. That's fine. But to start 10 days before, are these guys really ready to play a game that's going to count in the standings on March 20th? I guess they are, but I don't know. And again, the games were if you lived in Los Angeles or San Diego, you had to get up at 3:00 in the morning to watch those games. I mean, that's ridiculous.
At least I think they saved the Yamamoto. They saved the Yamamoto start. I think for Dodgers Stadium. I don't think he pitched over there, but that the two acquisitions really made waves, and yet, that's the other thing. The Dodgers are always great to start out the year, and then by the time the postseason comes, I don't know what happens. They fall apart. I think even Dodger fans want some consistency from this team.
Well, you're right, and the pressure in baseball as we go into the season is on the Dodgers. Not what they do in the regular season, but when they hit the playoffs. The pressure, number one pressure of all the teams in Major League Baseball going into the playoffs will be the Los Angeles Dodgers. At this time, and we'll talk about, obviously, there's 5.5 months to go in the season. I don't know any other team that has that kind of pressure that will be going into the postseason. I mean, I really don't. I mean, even the Orioles, they're still young. They have no pressure on them. The Yankees, I don't know. We'll see. The Astros, I don't think so. Maybe the Braves a little bit, but we'll get as we get to October, which is a long way away. We'll see. But right now, I can tell you, right now here on April 3rd, the pressure is on the Los Angeles Dodgers, no doubt about it.
Well, we'll have to see, Lou, how that all shapes out. Now, I did mention NFL, and I will say, I slammed the desk at the radio station when I heard the news. Now, I think it's not a surprise because Stephon Diggs was complaining very vocally. He wasn't getting enough routes. He wasn't getting enough targets, this, that, and the other. So him being traded isn't a complete shock, but at the same time, it is a major shakeup.
It's a major shakeup. I don't know what his problem was. He played 4 years in Buffalo after he complained about in Minnesota and got traded from Minnesota, who replaced him with a better player than he was in Justin Jefferson. But if he's complaining about targets, I don't know what the hell he's talking about, because in the 4 years he played in Buffalo, he caught between 103 and 127 balls every year. He caught over 100 balls each year. So I don't know what he's talking about. But maybe if he had caught that ball in the playoff game against Kansas City, Buffalo might have gotten to the Super Bowl instead of Kansas City. So again, you've been hearing this is addition by subtraction. I'm not so sure. They lost Gabriel Davis, their number 2 receiver, to Jacksonville in free agency. They don't have Diggs. They have a tremendous quarterback. And are the Bills rebuilding? Are they retooling? They only got a 25 second round pick. I think the Bills have their own pick. They have a second round pick. I don't think they have a third round pick. So this hurts the Bills. Make no mistake about that. It does, and it shakes up the AFC East. I mean, I think the Jets have a better roster than the Bills here before the draft and before any additional free agency. If the season started today, I would have to favor the Jets to win the division if Rodgers is healthy, and I assume he is. But there's still a lot to go. We'll see what happens in the draft. But the Bills have traded a lot of their core players. Not only, they traded, they got rid of a safety man. They got rid of Morse, the one of their key offensive linemen. So they're a good organization. I guess they know what they're doing. But yeah, this is a big loss for them. But I'm sure they'll draft a receiver in the first round, or they'll look somewhere. But this shakes up the AFC and the AFC East. Shakes up the AFC because now you look at a team like the Houston Texans that won 2 games 2 years ago, made the playoffs last year in a weak division, and the division's still weak, the AFC South. But a couple of weeks ago, they signed Joe Mixon. They re-signed Dalton Schultz. They got Nico Collins, a fine wide receiver. Tank Dell, another fine receiver who got hurt, with about game 12 or game 13. He's going to be back. And they added Stephon Diggs. He might be a pain in the butt, but he's a terrific player. So they're going for it, Alex. The Houston Texans are going for it. And you talk about a fast turnaround from 2 years ago. Wow.
Yep, I know. It's going to be fun, and I tell you, this the fact that the NFL is never out of the news cycle is another reason why baseball needs to up its game. There's no reason why, and I would even say the NHL should do a better job. There's no reason why the Rangers should not even be on the back page sometimes with all the stuff they're doing. I mean, it's just the overlooking drives me crazy, Lou, to be honest with you.
Well, you're 100% correct. I mean, if the Rangers season, if the Mets or Yankees or the Giants or Jets were having the type of season that the New York Rangers were having, yeah, they'd be plastered all the time on the back page of the newspapers. You're right. And the Rangers are having a tremendous season. They have a chance to win the President's Trophy. And they have a chance to win, as we said many times, the Stanley Cup. And when we talk about the NHL playoffs, as in a couple of weeks, we're going to talk about teams with pressure going into the playoffs. And in the East, it's the Boston Bruins, it's the New York Rangers, and it's the Carolina Panthers right off the top of my head. Toronto still a little bit. There's always pressure on Toronto, but those teams will have the pressure. Any elimination before getting to the finals will be a failure for the Rangers, the Carolina Hurricanes, or the Boston Bruins.
A friend of mine told me today they benched Cooley, and I'm wondering why, because Cooley's been a big asset to that Ranger team. What's Laviolette doing there? Are you following it that closely?
Well, again, I would assume that he missed an assignment defensively, or he didn't battle for a puck the way Laviolette, the compete level, might not have been. I really don't know what the reason for his benching, but it happens all the time. I mean, Patrick Roy's benched guys in his 2 months as Islander coach. And Tortorella does it all the time. So they see guys who don't.
He benched his captain and took heat from it. Although what I love about Tortorella is he takes heat and gives it right back to the reporters. That's the best part of him. I love that.
It's after the game with the Islanders the other night, a game that they were lucky to get a point in, and that point might cost the Islanders a playoff spot. When they got the Flyers got the losers point on Monday night, but in the post-game press conference, what about your team tonight? We were soft. We didn't compete. We weren't winning the board battles, and that's why guys get benched.
Yep. Well, we'll have to see how that all shakes out. I just know that Yanks are 5-1 as of this recording. And yet, if something happened with the Jets or Giants tomorrow, they would be on the back page over, and they're not even playing right now. That's how it's and the media, where did it turn to where the baseball, even the hockey? I mean, hockey used to be pristine sport, like a prestigious sport, because of the history. It was an original six team, the Rangers. Where'd the media change that all up and say we're not going to cover them as closely or highlight them as much as what's going on in MetLife Stadium?
Well, football is just at another level. That's just what it is, because of betting, because of fantasy sports, because of its once a week type event type of situation. And it doesn't matter if the Jets or Giants are good. Yes, it's better. But while baseball once was a national sport, has become a regional type sport, a niche sport like hockey, more so than a national sport. Football's a national sport. I mean, we're talking about Stephon Diggs and the Houston Texans and the Buffalo Bills. I mean, if Stephon Diggs was traded in baseball, we probably wouldn't be talking about it, or they wouldn't be talking about it. But as soon as I was out and about this morning, as soon as I got in the car, I turned on Sirius XM, and I didn't go to the NFL channel. I just went to a regular talk show channel, and 6 calls in a row, the Bills and Texans trade. And that's a baseball problem. They have to get their hands around that and create some kind of attention for their sport. And it's the great sport. And New York is, in my opinion, everybody says, well, St. Louis is the best baseball town in America. I don't know. I disagree. I put New York right up there with them.
New York is a great sports town, no matter what. And by the way, speaking of Newark, we should talk about Seton Hall in the next episode, depending on what they do with the NIT. That's a big deal too, because imagine the Big East, who complain and complain, have an NIT champion and an NCAA tournament champion. I mean, that is a really good scenario, I think, for the Big East, in my view.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And ironically, the two teams that probably got screwed the most on Selection Sunday, Indiana State, which had a net of 28. No team with a net as good as 28 has ever missed the NCAA tournament. I think the lowest before that was 33. They were 28 and they didn't get in. And Seton Hall, who should have gotten in, they beat UConn. They beat St. John's twice. They beat Marquette. They went to triple overtime with Creighton. They didn't get in. And they, according to the NCAA selection committee, they were the second one out. So it's ironically, those two teams are going to be playing for the NIT title tomorrow night.
And I'm sure you're going to hear it. I'll try and log into the Varsity app, and we'll take it from there, Lou. But for now, wow, we haven't been on a little bit, so I figure why not go an hour and just lay it all out there for our listeners, right?
I love it. I can go another hour, Alex. I can go another hour.
Well, I could too. This is something that you are trying to, I wouldn't say resurrect, but preserve the beauty that is baseball through your passion. And there's got to be more out there that feel the same way. Like there's got to be. And I always kind of,
baseball is the best game. The business of baseball is the worst. The relationship between the Players Association and the commissioner's office, terrible. But the game itself is the best game that has been invented, in my opinion.
And then there's Scott Boras, and I mentioned him because Alonso, his walk year started out slow. He'll probably come around and hit maybe 35, 40 homers, I would think. But this is a pressure year for him because obviously they didn't sign him to go into the season. There's that. And then there's the idea they're off to a slow start. And I was looking at the pressure on the Mets because he may not want to be here if they're off to such a bad, if they're not going to be that well at the end of the year. Would you agree?
Yeah, we have to see. We have to see how it plays out. If there's a lot of mudslinging, guys get ticked off, and he might sign elsewhere. Scott Boras, I don't think does baseball any favors by having his guys sign, like Blake Snell and those guys still unsigned, 2 weeks before the season begins. He thinks he's Mr. Baseball. I think he's a detriment to baseball. Yeah, he makes his percentage on these contracts and he gets his guys some money. But I mean, the fact that he holds his guys out right to the end, not good. So
right to the end. I mean, right to the like a week before opening day. It's the most ridiculous thing I saw, and of course, Yankee fans were crushed that Snell wasn't coming here, especially because they they lost Cole and whatnot. But to their credit, they're holding strong without him.
Be okay, my friend.
One last thing, I see Tehran. I always thought Tehran was on the Mets to begin with, and now he's back. Is that what's going on?
Well, he never pitched for the Mets. He pitched for the Braves, and he was an excellent pitcher. Then he got hurt, and then he was out of baseball for a couple of years. Then he was with somebody last year, and off the top of my head, I can't remember who, was not successful. And I guess in this era of everybody needing pitching, they're going to give him a shot. I don't know much about it because I just saw the alert as you did. And so I don't know what the deal is with Julio Tehran. I did see him pitch a one-hit shutout against the Mets back like in 2016 or 2017 on Father's Day, for whatever that's worth.
Well, Lou, keep us coming with the stories in the next week or so. More guests around the corner. We're in a new season of spring. We covered winter fairly well, I thought, in February with Kenny Albert and the like and Greg Picker. Now we got to keep it going in the spring.
Looking forward to it.
That was Terminello's take on the Alex Garrett Podcast Network.